Smile arc and vertical incisal display, they're really two separate things, and we need to kind of diagnose and request those things separately from one another. And we really even should be evaluating them independently from one another. Having a preference of smile arc protection, it's not necessarily on every patient type of a thing. This is a patient by patient decision. And so I'm going to show you this first patient right off the bat, where if you look at her and we pull up kind of the photographs, let's look at smile arc. If you look at her upper lip and lower lip, she's got a really flat lower lip, really pretty flat upper lip. She's one of those 15% of patients where she has an asymmetric upper lip as well. So her left side actually lifts and elevates higher than her right side. But look at her smile arc right now.
So this is what David Sarver would consider an excessive smile arc, meaning that the kind of curvature of the lower lip versus the teeth doesn't match up at all. It's got a tighter radius as we turn around with the lower teeth versus the lower lip curvature.
So does that kind of make sense that we have in this position that canine to lateral to central is her radius is way steeper, way tighter. That circle is way smaller than if you were to kind of draw a radius relative to her lower lip. And if we look at instead now, vertical incisal position is her upper incisors have erupted actually past the lower lip. So when she smiles, the lower lip's actually covering the edges of the central incisors. So she has over erupted central incisors as well. So when we look at this from kind of a cephalometric viewpoint, if you draw a line kind of from the commissure of the lips, you can see that she's got about 4.5 millimeters of central incisor hanging down below that commissure line. And if you look at where we ended up post-treatment, you can see we're right at that 3 millimeter mark. But the other big thing is, and this is something I think that's as important as smile arc, it's as important as vertical incisal display, but it's incisor torque. And the first thing I do when I'm setting up a case is I want to make sure I've got my upper incisors. When a prosthodontist sets up a full mouth restoration, when they do a denture setup, the first tooth that they set up is the central incisor. And we want those upper central incisors to have either the middle third or the incisal third perpendicular to the floor. Because when the patient smiles, I want that incisal edge reflecting light and bouncing it back at the person that they're looking at. And so you can see how this central incisor, originally that incisal third was bouncing light down towards the floor. And here at the end of treatment, we've got it bouncing back right at the person that the patient's looking at. And so when I'm thinking about these digital setups, also I'm looking at that incisor position. And I like to have the incisal third typically perpendicular, because with a functional envelope, I want that to be a little bit on the shallower side, just as someone who treats a lot of TMD. Just having a little more shallowness is always a good thing. So that's what I'm usually aiming for, the incisal third to be perpendicular to the floor, but the middle third is also fine. This is what Frank Spear kind of got his initial fame for, was these Paramount studies on that light bouncing back off the incisal third. So here you can see when we finish treatment, we have really good torque control. You can see now we've got a smile arc that's more conducive in following the lip. Now the central incisors are viewable, not covered by that lower lip at all anymore. And if we look at before to after, I think it's a much improved aesthetic result. And, this is I have all these kids that just have all this altered passive eruption. And so I always like to do this little gingival mock-up where I just do screenshots of the teeth and just show I can move them up on PowerPoint. But you can see how much, if she would just let me do a little bit of electrosurgery to lengthen those teeth, how, it's a slam dunk case. And this was done with pretty much one doctor intervention visit, and everything else was just wire changes. And the other really nice thing about improving that kind of div 2 appearance of those central incisors is we got the condyle on the left side to come forward a little bit. It seemed like it was getting distally displaced. So again, 8 visits. one visit where the doctor, and it was actually my associate's second day on the job, that he was the one doing the adjustment. So that's kind of an example of, if I would have asked for accentuated smile arc on that case, it would have been doing a big disservice to the patient.